Starting off at number 10, we have the Candyman. The Candyman was an urban legend based off the short story by Clive Barker, which eventually got turned into a movie. The urban legend states that if you look in the mirror and chant his name 5 times, then he will appear and give you candy. Kidding. I wish. But instead, he will appear and murder you. Now, in the movie The Candyman, they had him climbing out of a medicine cabinet, which altered the urban legend. In 1987, it would appear as if the Candyman was real. Ruth McCoy was a victim who passed away after 2 men climbed through her medicine cabinet and shot her. Now, these men were not the Candyman, but used the same method of killing that he would use. They broke through the connecting wall and entered Ruth's apartment through her cabinet. This is a very scary and tragic case.
Moving on to number 9 now, we have the body snatchers. In the 1960s, there was a rumour going around that governments were removing parts from the bodies of dead children and shipping them to secret labs in the US. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, but it was totally true. When World War II ended with the US dropping the world's first atomic bombs, they wanted to determine the effects of nuclear radiation on humans around the world, specifically children who have been born since those bombs were dropped. It was called Project Sunshine. Over 1,500 bodies, many of them babies, were gathered from half a dozen countries from Europe to Australia in the 1950s for these studies. At times, the scientists would even ship single body parts taken from the babies without the parents even knowing. Coming in at number 8 now, we have Trick or Treat. For almost as long as Trick or Treat has been a thing, so too have the stories of nasty tricks of people putting dangerous things in the bags of little kids in order to cause them harm on Halloween. It sounds too horrific to be true, right? I mean, it's Halloween, it's supposed to be fun. In 2017 though, some parents' worst fears were confirmed when a mystery person allegedly dropped a small bag of crystal meth into the Trick or Treat bag of a toddler in Wisconsin. The Menominee tribal police chief said the child's father was going through the candy and he found a really small clear plastic bag about the size of a quarter. When the substance inside was tested, it was proven that the powder was methamphetamine. As a response, the local school banned students from bringing any candy to school the next day while an investigation continued. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Colonel Buck's cursed tomb. You can find Colonel Buck's tomb in Maine. He was a famous military leader in the late 18th century, but is mostly known nowadays for his tomb. Colonel Buck was a Justice of the Peace. That title means he was a figure tasked with leading the local people and making sure justice and peace was always maintained. As part of this role, he is said to have ordered a witch be put to death by burning. The accused woman, in her dying breath, is said to have put a curse on his tomb that Buck had prepared for himself years before. When people looked at the tomb after, they saw a strange stain on it in the shape of a woman's leg. People said this was a sign of the curse and that the leg was actually the witch's. Now, according to legend, the stone has been replaced many times, but this stain keeps appearing. This urban legend is 100% true, except I think for the stone replacing bit. I'm not too sure about that bit, but yeah, let's go with 99% true. Next up at number 6 now, we have LOYON. For many years, people in Switzerland spoke of a strange figure who stalked the Maules forest wearing a camouflage jacket and a vintage gas mask. The locals began to call him LOYON, and he slipped into urban legend. Then, in 2013, someone snapped an actual picture of LOYON. He was real. Locals searched for him all over the forest. Someone even found a camouflage boiler suit folded in the forest along with a letter from him. The letter said that the man was annoyed that the media had exposed him because his walks in the forest were part of his happiness therapy. He concluded the letter by saying, "I have concluded that the media has had 2 effects: deprive a person of his harmless outlet and make others feel insecure." Ever since the letter was found, LOYON has never been seen again. Poor guy. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the sunken city. All over the world, there are urban legends about towns and cities being submerged under the water. Perhaps the most famous example is, of course, Atlantis. Well, there is actually a real-life example of this in America, Lake Lanier. This is an artificial lake in Georgia that spreads out for 59 square miles. When the Army Corps began constructing the dam in 1950 to flood the area, people were already leaving. For those 5 years, the government bought up private land from farmers and townspeople so that they could be relocated elsewhere. The final count involved 250 families, 15 businesses, and 20 cemeteries, along with all the bodies buried there. The water ended up swallowing fields, bridges, gates, landmarks, a ferry business, roads, forests, and even a racetrack called Looper Speedway. These days, if you could walk along the bottom of the lake, which is 258 feet deep in some parts, you'd find a ghost town inhabited only by fish, swimming in the murky depths that humans once called home. Coming in at number 4 now, we have CATMAN of GREENOCK. In the Scottish town of Greenock, people talk for years about a strange man with no hair, covered in mud and dirt, who would be seen eating rats. If it sounds bizarre, that's because it was. The story spread across the whole area. People enjoyed it as nothing more than a creepy story, but then in 2007 things got very real. Someone uploaded this video of the CATMAN in real life chomping down on an actual rat. This was a shock to many people because stories of CATMAN have been around since the 1970s. However, since 2017, no sightings have been confirmed and CATMAN has slunk off again into local urban legend. Next up at number 3 now, we have E.T.'s burial spot. Now from that title, you might think I'm about to tell you that E.T. wasn't just a movie, it was all real, and he died, and I know where he's buried. Now if that was true, it would be the story of the century. It's not that, but this is really interesting as well. Legend says that somewhere in the New Mexico desert, Atari buried copies of one of the worst commercial failures in video game history, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Why did that game fail? Well, it was clearly a cash grab deal with Steven Spielberg to make more money from one of the most successful movies at that time. They had just 5 weeks to make this game, and as such, it was rushed and sloppy and just rejected by the early gaming community. It also came during the 1983 video game crash. That didn't help. So Atari have millions of unsold games and decided to bury a lot of them in the desert. Well, this urban legend is 100% true, of course. In 2013, a documentary team excavated the rumored dump site and found hundreds of thousands of Atari cartridges buried in the desert. Many of them were of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Next up at number 2 now, we have the medicine murder. For many years there have been urban legends going around about murderers breaking into people's houses by climbing through a bathroom cabinet. It's a creepy thought, a killer just squeezing into your bathroom in the middle of the night. It became such a popular urban legend that it inspired the 1992 horror film CANDYMAN, which includes a scene where the main characters learn that a murderer might be entering apartments through the medicine cabinet. This actually used to be a major structural flaw in many American apartment blocks. Well, the nightmare became true in 1987. Back then, some housing blocks in Chicago had apartments that were joined with just a flimsy partition. An actual murder was committed by criminals who used this to climb through into someone else's apartment and commit a murder. The urban legend had become a movie, which has ended up becoming a reality. And finally, at number 1 now, we have SLAVEMASTER. Around the turn of the millennium, many people started receiving chain mail warning them of an instant messenger user called SLAVEMASTER, a serial killer who lured women to his house through public chat rooms. Sometimes he used names like MonkeyMan935 or Sweet Cali Guy Forever. Whatever his name was though, the email warned people that he had already killed 56 women. It seemed like an urban legend, and many of the details might have been embellished, but there is actually some dark truth to this story. In the 1990s, John Edwards Robinson was a serial killer from Kansas City who lured people to their deaths using instant messaging sites. His username was, of course, SLAVEMASTER. He remains on death row to this day.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Alaska Triangle. Turns out that Alaska has its very own Bermuda Triangle. This is referred to as the area in the southeast, to the northern Borough region, to the western metropolis of Anchorage. Apparently, more than 20,000 people have gone missing in this area. That's just in the past half century alone. And these people go missing without a trace. No one knows what happens to them or where they went. So some believe that this area is home to mythological type beasts that kidnap and then eat these people. Whereas others believe that this area is home to some dark vortex that sucks these poor souls in. Regardless of what you believe in, one thing is for sure, this triangle has and continues to take the lives of many. Moving on to number 9, we have the hermit in the woods. In North Pond, Maine, a hermit living in the woods was all the talk for 27 years. This urban legend started after people were mysteriously losing their food, clothing, tools, and toiletries. People said that this hermit would creep into your unoccupied home and steal items. Well, in 2013, it turns out that this legend was real. Christopher Knight was arrested and charged for robbery. Apparently, he committed more than 36 robberies per year and was living in the woods since around 1986. I mean, I have no clue how he got away with it for so long. Next, at number 8, we have the Leaping Lawyer of Bay Street. Now, this urban legend is about a lawyer who fell from his office building and plummeted to his death. Now, I remember hearing this story as a child since it originates in Toronto. What I didn't realize was that it was true. Apparently, in 1993, a man named Gary Hoy was trying to prove how strong the unbreakable glass in his office was. As a result, he ran towards the window and used his full weight to bang against it. Unfortunately, the entire window popped out and he fell 24 stories to the ground. Moving on to number 7, we have the ghost of MAULES. This next urban legend takes us to Switzerland. It is said that a mysterious figure who they call LOYON, or the ghost of MAULES, stalks the MAULES forest wearing only camouflage and a gas mask. Some people have claimed to see this figure, but it remained just an urban legend until 2013. In 2013, a photo surfaced of what appears to be LOYON. Then, a few months later, his gas mask and coat were found in the forest. Alongside that was a note that basically suggested that he was wandering the forest wanting solitude, and even suggests that he may have taken his own life. To this day, no one knows why someone was lurking the forest dressed like that, or where they disappeared to. At number 6, we have the Alice killings. Now, this is based on Japan's most famous urban legend. Legend has it that someone was murdering random individuals and placing a single playing card by their bodies with the word Alice written in the victim's blood. This was said to happen between 1999 to 2005. Well, in 2003, this story came to life. Around that time, there was a serial killer in Spain that would leave playing cards alongside his victims. He was found guilty for the death of 6 people and 3 that were wounded. However, no need to worry, this killer was caught and is spending 142 years in jail. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Bunny Man. This legend dates back to Virginia in the 1970s. Basically, the legend states that there was a patient that escaped a mental asylum and would gut bunnies and hang them from a bridge's underpass. The same patient was then said to move on to new victims, being teenagers. Well, in October of 1970, people reported seeing this bunny man around town. One couple said that they saw him dressed in a white suit and bunny ears. They also claimed that he threw a hatchet at their car windshield and shattered it. The next sighting was from a security guard who saw this man with a hatchet hacking away at a porch railing. When confronted, he ran away. No one has been able to catch this man, and as creepy as he is, there's no evidence that he murdered anyone, thankfully. But also, what's up with the costume? Like, is he trying to embody the Easter Bunny? Or maybe he is the Easter Bunny, who's now going down a much darker path. Who knows? And of course, we have the Boogeyman on this list, coming in at number 4. There are so many different legends of the Boogeyman out there, but this one is about one named Cropsey. This tale originated in Staten Island, where kids believed that this Boogeyman would live in the woods and would attack and disembowel children. Other versions say he was an axe murderer, but no matter what version you hear, they all say that he would hurt and attack children. Parents would reassure their kids that they had nothing to worry about, but they did. In 1987, Andre Rand was responsible for a bunch of child disappearances and deaths in the 1970s. It is said that the story of the Boogeyman heavily influenced him, and he even lived in the woods part-time, being the real-life Cropsey. In our 3rd spot, we have the Organ Stealers. Now, this is another well-known urban legend. This urban legend has lots of variations, but they all basically surround the same concept. A person is out traveling on a business trip, hooks up with a stranger who ends up drugging them. Then they end up in a tub of ice with stitches along the side of their body and with their kidneys missing. Now, we may feel safe since this is just an urban legend, right? Wrong. It has happened to numerous individuals whose organs are then sold illegally online. In 2008, it happened to a construction worker by the name of Mohammed Salem. He took on a construction job in New Delhi, but when he showed up on the job site, he was knocked out and his kidney was taken. Another victim was Shakil Ahmed, who was 28 years old when he also had his kidneys forcibly taken from him. This is terrifying. I would like my kidneys to remain intact. Thank you very much. Coming in at number 2, we have SLENDERMAN. Of course Mr. Slendy had to make it on this list. He is an all-time favorite urban legend of mine. I've mentioned SLENDERMAN on this channel before. Basically, he is a super tall, pale creature that appears to have no face. He preys on little children, getting them to do dark deeds for them, or kidnaps and then murders them. Now, SLENDERMAN is just a legend created by Eric Knudsen. However, in 2014, 2 teen girls were charged for stabbing one of their classmates, claiming that SLENDERMAN told them to. Now, the victim did survive, but the girls' plan was to walk to SLENDERMAN's mansion after they finished the deed. They claim that his mansion is located in Wisconsin's Nicollet National Forest. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Black-Eyed Children. This legend is definitely one to keep you up at night. The legend surrounds children whose eyes are completely black that make an appearance at night. The kids can be anywhere from age 6 to 16 and target adults who are alone. These kids often ask for favors such as asking to get a ride home, asking for food, or to use the bathroom in their house. Now, there are too many stories about people encountering these children. In 1998, that was the first encounter with them. A man said that 2 black-eyed children tried to get a drive home from him. He said that the children said, "We can't get into your car until you do. Just let us in. We will be gone before you know it." No thanks. That's terrifying. More like, he will be gone before you know it. And then in 2008, a woman had a similar encounter. She was in a car waiting for her mom when the children were tapping on the glass asking for a ride. Now, it's easy for people to make up these stories for attention, but there is an actual video that shows a motorcyclist encountering a black-eyed girl. In the video, you can see the girl appear and then disappear in front of him when he stops his motorcycle. Then she appears again and he runs away terrified.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Woman in Black. Now, if you've ever watched any of my Urban Legends videos, you'll know that almost every country in the world seems to have a creepy story about a woman wandering along the side of the road and scaring drivers. Well, in 2014, it really happened. All along highways in Alabama, Georgia, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia, people started seeing a woman in black by the side of the road. She would always be wearing black willowy robes, dragging a small black bag and perhaps an umbrella if it was raining. Some people tried to talk to her, to offer her food, water, or money. She refused it all. Who was the woman in black? Well, eventually, people found out. She was 54-year-old Elizabeth Poles. Police took her to an undisclosed location for her safety, where they fed her and helped her find shelter. She later told ABC News that she wished people would mind their own business and that her long journey was related to her faith and religion. Now, sadly, this interview only brought even more attention to Elizabeth, although she eventually dropped out of the public eye and perhaps continued her long journey.
In our 9th spot, we have the UFO base. And if you guys are still watching, hopefully smash that like button. Let me know in the comments below that you're still here. Hi. It is believed that Alaska is home to a top secret UFO base, even though it's not that top secret if people claim that there is one. Anyways, Mount Hayes is the highest mountain in the eastern Alaskan range. That's the place where people believe extraterrestrials and UFOs are located. It all started in the 1940s when a number of UFOs were spotted in that area. Eventually, the sightings got more and more frequent that the FBI was called in to investigate the area. And the sightings haven't stopped. There have been hundreds of sightings throughout the years. In fact, Pat Price, a former CIA remote viewer, even said that the mountain, and I quote, housed one of the aliens' largest bases. So this urban legend might not be so much of a legend. In our 8th spot, we have the Captain Cook. This is a cute little hotel located in downtown Anchorage. According to legends though, this hotel is extremely haunted. Apparently a woman took her life in the hotel in the 70s, and her ghost can be seen wandering the halls. In particular, she is said to haunt the woman's restroom there. Visitors also claim that doors will open and close on their own and the lights will flicker on and off by themselves. According to locals, this woman is bound to the hotel and doesn't know how to escape it. So she's just stuck there, aimlessly wandering the halls for eternity. I don't know why she would haunt the bathroom though. Like, that's not a place I would hang around in if I was a ghost. Moving on at number 7, we have Keeloot. A Keeloot is said to be an evil earth spirit that appears in the form of a black dog that's completely hairless, but it does have hair on its little feet. but only its feet. Apparently, this dog then stalks travelers at night and has been known to attack and kill them. Those that have apparently seen this spirit say they saw dog tracks in the snow that then disappeared right in front of their own eyes. That's apparently a sign that the Quileute is nearby. In Inuit legend, the Quileute is said to be a spirit of death. Others believe that it's a real-life cryptid. Scariest part? Apparently, just by looking at this creature, they can cause victims to become disoriented and spiral into madness. They then will become lost and perish from hypothermia. The Quileute waits until this moment and then attacks and eats its victim. In our 6th spot, we have Mother Lode Lodge. Located in Palmer, this lodge is said to be very haunted. In fact, it literally has been known to spook even the hardest of souls. According to local legend, this hotel is haunted by a number of different spirits. Most famously, there's this black apparition ghost, given that name because it always appears as a black cloudy apparition. People have seen this spirit wandering the grounds. Another ghost is a figure that's dressed in black. This figure likes to show itself in mirror reflections. Just sounds like Bloody Mary to me. No thank you. On top of that, people have reported hearing strange noises in the middle of the night and have seen curtains open and close by itself. It's a good place to go ghost hunting, but a bad place to spend the night. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the aliens. In late fall through winter to early spring, the northern lights can be seen on nights with clear skies. I've always wanted to see the northern lights, like they're quite beautiful. But according to a weird urban legend, it states that the northern lights are produced by aliens. Yeah, you heard me. Legend goes that aliens create these beautiful lights so that they can then fly through the air undetected. In fact, cosmonaut Ivan Vagner was filming the northern lights when he captured a UFO flying by. Plus, there's already a ton of UFO and alien sightings in Alaska. So, could it be that this legend is true? That the aliens are behind this colorful display of lights? Moving on to number 4, we have the sea monster. Located in the waters near Kodiak Island lurks a close relative to the Loch Ness Monster. It has since been given the name the Kodiak Sea Monster. It all started in 1971 when a group of fishermen set sail. That's when they encountered this massive sea beast. One of the fishermen said, and I quote, "We don't know what it was, but it had a grayish color and we couldn't see any fins or any tail, and it never made any noise. It would just come up and you could see the head and part of the body." Another man described it as being 30 feet long and had a head on it that looked kinda like a horse. Then in 2002, it was seen again, this time by a different group of fishermen. They described it as having a massive head and neck. They couldn't tell if the head was a foot in diameter or 3 feet in diameter. To this day, the beast has never been caught, so maybe it's still out there, continuing to scare local fishermen. In our 3rd spot, we have the Alaskan Vortex. So let's talk more about this Alaskan triangle. The missing persons rate in that area is more than twice the national average. It's insane. As I mentioned briefly, some people believe that a vortex is to blame for all the disappearances. Legend goes that the vortex basically sucks people in and then transports them to different dimensions. Let's look at some of the facts used to support this theory. For starters, apparently the area has a huge number of magnetic anomalies. It throws off compasses and has even made people feel sick. A number of rescue workers that have gone into the area have claimed to feel disoriented, lightheaded, and have experienced auditory hallucinations. This could be evidence that a vortex is present. Moving on to number 2, we have the Bigfoot. Alaska apparently has its own Bigfoot. They call it the hairy beast, and apparently it lives in Port Chatham. It all started back in the 1930s when a number of people went missing in this area. In 1931, a man named Andrew Kamluck went out logging. He was later found dead in the forest with a bad blow to his head. Around the same time, another man was out in the area and randomly disappeared without a trace. And then another man named Tom Larson was out chopping wood when he saw this hairy beast on the beach. The creature was just standing there staring at him. It didn't attack him though. There are more stories that involve people mysteriously disappearing or dying in the area, and they blame it on this mysterious hairy beast. In fact, on a number of other occasions, people have seen like weird man-like beast footprints in the mud, which they believe is from this terrifying creature. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Kushtaka. Otters are cute little cuddly animals that are pretty innocent, right? Well, not in Alaska. You gotta be careful with the otters out there, because they might actually be shape-shifting creatures known as kushtaka. The kushtaka is said to be a cross between an otter and a man. In some stories, these creatures are said to be helpful, but in most stories, they are deceptive and evil creatures. They tend to mimic the screams of women and children so that fishermen will be like, oh my god, someone's out there, I need to help them, I'll save them, and then they go to help and they just get killed. They are also said to appear when people are vulnerable. Maybe there's a lost fisherman or hiker or someone that's injured. They'll come and be like, we're here to help you, to rescue you. Instead, they'll lead you deeper into the wilderness and either tear you to pieces or turn you into a kushtaka to prevent your soul from ever being able to reincarnate. Wow, that's terrifying. Plus, the fact that they can also shapeshift into an otter is really weird. Like, so maybe you're out on the water and you're like, oh cute, look at that little otter, and then all of a sudden it's like psych, and then grabs you and pulls you into the water. Watch out.